Alright, okay, so we're going to push on. We're going to crack on with our character turntables. I'm going to carry on with the file that I created in the last video, where we made a fancy character turntable animation. And we're going to produce a wireframe version of this same animation, but with a wireframe effect applied to our character. Why do we need to do that? We have distinction criteria in the character modeling unit, which requires to get that distinction a high technical standard of modeling. So we need to show off our mesh, show off the geometry, the topology, that's another word for it. We need to show off this high standard of modeling that we have created. So to do that, we're going to use this wireframe effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save as. Pyramid tutorial wireframe, and in the last video I talked about parenting all these separate elements, but this time it's kind of occurred to me that that's fairly kind of moot, since we have saved this as a new version to produce our turntable. I mean, I suppose if you hadn't done that, it would save you any bother later on. But really, you should be saving this as a completely separate file to work on these turntable animations. So joining our mesh isn't going to have a massive effect on anything that we do later on. So at this time I am going to do a Control J and join all our separate components together into one mesh. It will make it a lot easier in a minute. The first thing I'm going to do, or the next thing I'm going to do, what I should have done first, is turn on the screencast keys. Right, now I think, let's just have a look, show you what I mean. So we've joined that, that's all one mesh now, it's all in the same object. Yes, so in doing that, I think it's removed the parent and child relationship I had with all those objects and the stand here. So I'm going to just set the parent of the character to the stand again. So I was right clicking the character, shift right clicking the stand, Control P, set parent to object. And then let's just check that. If we grab our empty, it's also the animation. You see, the animation should still be fine. Yep. Right, so now joining that mesh is going to make it a bit easier to deal with our materials, because what I would like you to do is remove all the fancy materials and therefore any textures that are assigned to those materials, and apply our wireframe modifier just to a very basic base, a very neutral and basic base material. So I'm going to select all these materials and just remove the selected material slot. So we'll just do that. Then I'm just going to remove that as well, set up a new one, just go with the default colour. However, I will turn down the specular intensity here, which I recommend you do. Actually, well, let's see. Let's have a look. Shift Z I'm using here, by the way, to switch between solid and rendered view. Shift Z is a handy hotkey. Let's have a look at the intensity. Let's do that a little bit. It's not making any difference. So actually, it's not really making an awful lot of difference in these circumstances. But I get in the habit of turning down that specular intensity. Right, that's pretty nerdy stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is add this wireframe effect, and we just do that with a modifier. So we've gone to the modifier tab up here, this little wrench icon. I already have a mirror modifier sitting in there. I'm just going to collapse that. I'm going to add a new modifier, and we're going to choose wireframe. So by default, it looks pretty ugly. It's pretty crazy. Now that's not really doing a great job of showing off our geometry, considering we've got hidden objects below other objects that are not important. So what we're going to do is untick this replace original option, so that we get our base mesh and our wireframe effect applied to that mesh itself. And What we've got here is a grey wireframe on a grey model. That's not brilliant. So we're going to add a new material on the object. Add a new material. I'm going to make this. We need to have a high contrast. So if you've got a light coloured mesh, let's make a dark coloured wireframe. So click on diffuse and bring this down to a dark grey. And here you can see the reflection happening that's being caused by our specular intensity. So I'm going to turn that right down. You can see it in the preview, the effect that it would have. I'm going to turn it right down. Right, come back to our modifier and choose material offset. We're going to choose a material offset of 1, which just offsets the material of the wireframe by 1 from the original base mesh. So I've got 1 in here already. So the next one along is our black, and there we go. That is pretty much it. You might want to tweak the thickness a little bit. I'm pretty happy with that. It's looking. Let's check the rendered version of that. Here we go. Now you might spot this is going to flag up any issues that you've got with your mesh, and you may have to go in and sort it out. If you've got any strange duplicated edges, duplicated faces, it's going to more than likely show them up here. I was slightly concerned by this thicker area here, but I think that is actually being caused. That's just how it was modelled. There's an extra loop cut around the bottom of his sleeve here. Yeah, so that's not a problem. The other thing that is very important in this situation is that if you have already got a subdivision surface modifier in here, you need to turn it off to the render. You need to switch that off the render, or just delete it altogether. I think I should be able to demonstrate what I mean if I add one in there. Yeah, I mean the subsurface. Move it up. Try moving it up. Yeah. Whoa! I don't know what it's doing in my head. That's meant. Oh yeah. Well, the subsurface modifier on a pyramid shape is going to create this kind of spherical object, and then there's something below poking through. Anyway, the point is that this is not an accurate representation of our mesh. We want to show off the fact that we have a nice low poly mesh below any subdivision surface effects. So if you have a subsurface modifier in here already, make sure you switch it. Not only switch it off, but make sure it's switched off to the render engine as well, so that it doesn't render that, or just delete it altogether. Okay, that's pretty much it. Rendering that with no lights at all and using our ambient occlusion option. I still haven't added any lamps to this scene. I just have this ambient occlusion option ticked here, so you can see there that I'm getting a silhouette, so I have no lights in the scene. Ticking that box will create the ambient occlusion shadows, which are shadows that appear anywhere where there's a kind of nook or cranny where light can't get to. And to achieve that effect has given me a kind of soft, general, light in the scene. And that's probably enough. We don't necessarily need any dramatic atmospheric lighting in this animation. Okay, there we have it. I hope that was helpful, and good luck with that.